Hello and welcome to Freedom Underground on the Voluntary Virtues Network. I'm your host, James Weeks II. Today I will be talking about our brave men and women, the police. Having some stories of various incidents of the police coming to save the day. I'll start off with one that's from a few months ago. This story comes out of Oklahoma. And what began as a fun night out in the movies for a family ended with a father being beaten to death following a domestic dispute. While the Rodriguez family were having a dispute outside of the movie theater, a bystander happened to witness and decided to get the police involved. And what happened is the disagreement upset Mrs. Rodriguez, and she ran off to the family car. Her husband, Luis Rodriguez, followed to calm her down when he was intercepted by 5 police on the scene. Instead of trying to figure out what was going on, the 5 police took it upon themselves to beat down Luis Rodriguez, beating him, pepper spraying him, and pinning him on the ground. As his daughter explains, 5 guys got on top of him, beating him ruthlessly on the head, just pow, 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 even with knees. When they flipped him over, all you could see was blood in his face. He was disfigured. You couldn't even recognize him. In the video, you can hear his wife crying out, "Luis, Luis, please tell me he's still alive. He's not moving," she's screaming. The police responded to Mrs. Rodriguez's cries that they were killing him by saying they called a medical unit. Mrs. Rodriguez can be heard wanting to know why her husband was pinned to the ground and beaten. The officers said it was because he refused to give them an ID. Luis was taken to the hospital, and the family had hoped he'd pull through. However, he was pronounced dead after he stopped breathing. As the family's attorney said, Luis had committed no crime. He was not armed. He had no gun, no knife, no weapon of any kind. But Luis lost his life that night. According to the police, these actions are protocol. This is just one story here of what happens when you get the police involved in situations. It's really sad to hear stories like this. And this is not something, this is not an isolated incident. This kind of stuff happens all the time, where you're out just enjoying a nice day at the movies. You know, you may have been fighting with your family, but there was absolutely no reason to kill this guy. And the police felt it was protocol. Actions were protocol to beat this man to death in front of his screaming wife and daughter. It's just sickening. Here's another story where police ransacked a locked truck during a warrantless drug sweep of a concert parking lot. In Tampa, Florida, a local businessman was attending a concert, and while he was at the concert, the police decided to do some sort of dragnet sweep of the parking lot with a police dog, trying to create probable cause where there was no probable cause before. So what happened is the police dog comes and alerts on this guy's truck. So the police, they take it upon themselves to break into the guy's vehicle, ransack it, and this is this guy's business vehicle. It's a really nice truck. And they just ripped out all his electronic equipment. He ran a business selling air horns, so he had a whole lot of expensive air horn equipment installed in his vehicle. And all the air horns were ripped out. And you know, it's a marketing van, or marketing truck. It was covered in advertisement. It wouldn't be hard to figure out whose truck this is to go and ask him to open it up for him. They didn't need to break into it to do this. But so they ransacked his truck, vandalized it, costing him, thousands of dollars to repair it. There was nothing ever found. There was no marijuana found in the truck. He was never questioned, and he was not charged with any crime. And they just left him a handwritten note that read, "Sir, your car was checked by the TPD K9. This vehicle was searched for marijuana due to a strong odor coming from the passenger side of the vehicle. Any questions, call 813-431-3577. Corporal Flanning." Here's a picture of the handwritten note that they left for him. Just a little scrap piece of paper they left after doing all this damage. And, this is the kind of stuff that the so-called war on drugs has given us, is just people's vehicles being searched and destroyed. And this guy had an expensive vehicle. He was a businessman just trying to enjoy a hip-hop concert. And they decided to just vandalize his vehicle and rip out all the stuff. He had to, foot the cost of the repair himself. He was not reimbursed for that. And as he said, he had his entire life savings wrapped up into that truck. That was his business. That was not, like a personal car. That was his entire business was that truck. That was his business. That was his advertising and everything, him driving around in that. So I'll give you that number if you want to call Corporal Flanning and tell Corporal Flanning what you think of that situation. Again, the Corporal Flanning's number is 813-431-3577. And here is the Tampa Mayor's phone number. You can call him and tell him what you think about that. 813-274-8251. These police definitely need to be held accountable for this kind of action here. And as the guy, Mr. Heller, who got the truck broken into, he said, "You think if anyone's going to break into your vehicle, the last person you think is going to be the cops." Well, it's not. The cops will definitely be the first people to break into your vehicle. They got no problem with that. Here's a story out of New Albany, Indiana, where a mother of 4 was arrested on some misdemeanor charges. She was stripped naked by the deputies, pepper sprayed, and then left naked in the jail cell for 7 hours. She was arrested for disorderly conduct and resisting arrest after an emotional fight with her estranged husband. She was taken to the Floyd County Jail, held on the 2 misdemeanor charges. So she wasn't answering the questions to the satisfaction of the deputy, and according to Laura Landenwich's attorney, this situation was an attempt to get submission through humiliation, where the jailers strip searched her, patted her in front of other deputies, and left her nude in a room with no covering for the rest of the night. Almost immediately upon entering the jail, she was assaulted by 4 officers. They grabbed her around the neck. They grabbed her body, Landenwich said. They hold her down. There are 2 male officers and 2 female officers. They forcibly removed her pants, her shoes, her underwear, her shirt and bra. Miss Gentry was then hauled off to a padded room. So now she's hauled off to a padded room naked, parading around the jail. The lawyer explained, terrified and humiliated, she's banging on the door asking for someone to give her clothing. And someone comes to the door and says, "If you don't shut up, I'm going to pepper spray you." And sure enough, they open the door and spray pepper spray in the room, and then they leave her there for 40 minutes naked in a jail cell filled with pepper spray. After 40 minutes of being trapped in this jail cell, they finally decide to take her to go get her eyes washed out. So they again parade her around naked to go wash her eyes out, and then throw her back into solitary confinement for 5 additional hours. She sat naked in the jail cell from 4:14 a.m. to 10:58 a.m. And this isn't the first time that there's been something like this out of the Floyd County Jail. There was something that similar happened to Ashley Stroms, who says she was also stripped naked for misdemeanor charges and left in the jail naked. But that case was settled. Obviously, the department have not learned from treating people like that. They'll never learn. Here's another story. This one was quite shocking to me when I found this one, actually. But there was an 11-year-old boy building a tree fort. And he's a 5th grader, and he's building a tree fort. And one of the neighbors calls the police because they were concerned for safety hazards for the children. According to the lady who called the police's husband, Edgar Dillard, whose wife is the one who called the police, he said he was pretty shocked to hear that they pulled the guns on the child. So basically what happened is they show up, and one of the officers decides to point a gun at this 11-year-old child because he's playing in the woods, and tells him to get down on the ground. His mother, Janice Baptiste, that's Omari Grant's number, said Omari came running up to her. "Mom, he had a gun in my face. Mommy, Mommy, he had a gun in my face." She said her son was traumatized for this. So 2 officers, one with a gun drawn, came at him through the trees. Omari said, "I was thinking that I don't want to be shot today, so I just listened to what they said." According to Omari, the officers were using foul language and made him and his friends lay on the ground. He said, "I learned they were supposed to help you, not make you feel scared to even come outside." It is really sad that the police would come and just harass 11-year-old kids with guns drawn because they're playing in the woods. According to the police officer, they are going to investigate this. The Sergeant Joey Smith said if it was justified, then we'll deal with it. If it wasn't, we'll address it. But I got news for you. If you got your gun drawn on an 11-year-old kid for playing in the woods, that's not justified. That is not justified. All right. And the next story about here, we got William Pryor out of Akron. And what happened to him is the police went to William Yogi Pryor's home over a dispute over some property. Apparently, William Pryor was in possession of a trailer, and he took the woman's trailer. And according to Pryor's daughter, Pryor was just reclaiming the trailer because the trailer was actually his property, and apparently there was something that says Pryor was simply reclaiming the trailer because the client had not paid him for it, and the police did not have permission to enter his home. He was not in the wrong. So this guy, he reclaims a trailer from a client of his because she had not paid him for it. And this 66-year-old man, his fiance said that he was resting and did not want to speak to the police. And he appeared on the balcony and told the police that he would speak to the woman on Monday about the property. According to the police, they had permission to enter the home. They did not have a warrant. They're claiming they had permission to enter the home. And but they're claiming that Pryor was uncooperative So they decided to beat him up. And they entered it, according to Darnita Davis, which I believe was his fiancée. I believe so. They entered his home, went into his bedroom, and started to beating him, as if his oh no, it's not. It wasn't. His fiance cried out, "Stop! You're going to kill him." And that's the only time they stopped, is when she cried out for them to stop. Like our first story, crying out for help doesn't always stop the police when they're on a rampage. But luckily for William Pryor, his fiance's cries for them to stop beating him worked. The police are claiming that Pryor resisted, so that's why they were beating him up. The police are saying Pryor won't be charged, or they're not saying that he won't be charged, but he hasn't been charged yet. The officers are still working, but they are, and they have not been put on administrative leave either. So they're still out working there, beating people up. Didn't even get put on administrative leave for beating this 66-year-old man in his own bedroom. It's just absolutely ridiculous, the shit the police do. These are not isolated incidents. Here's one I found a little bit really strange, actually. There was a firefighter. This one doesn't involve any beatings, thank God, but a firefighter was arrested by the police. It was a Chula Vista firefighter, Jacob Gregory. He was helping two injured persons in a car crash on I-805 when a California Highway Patrol officer instructed all the firefighters to move the fire trucks from blocking the fast lane, but only the two of them complied. The 36-year-old firefighter veteran Gregory refused to remove the fire truck from the fast lane and continued to give aid to the people that were hurt in this crash. And Gregory said, it's unbelievable you guys have to treat us like this. We're trying to help you. The officer's response was, we asked you to clear the road. You said no, you're being arrested for not moving. And so Gregory was arrested, and but according to Cholula Vista Fire Chief Dave Hanneman, he was shocked that his men were treated that way and praised them for protecting the accident scene, because that's what they're trained to do, is to protect the accident scene and give aid. The firefighter was trying to help those people. This police officer was just on a fucking power trip. He had there was no reason for the firefighter to be arrested for trying to give aid to these people. Here's another story. This is kind of to show you the ridiculousness of what police officers are doing here. There's this mother. She's being criminally charged for letting her child play in her car for 5 minutes. She ran into the store and left her son in her car for 5 minutes when a nosy bystander decided to call the police. She left him in the vehicle with his video game system to play video games while she ran into the store to grab one item. She said, I did something I've never done before. I left him. I told him I'd be right back. I cracked the windows and child locked the doors and double-clicked my keys so that the alarm was set. And then I left him in the car for about 5 minutes. I made a split-second decision to leave my son in the car. It ended up consuming years of my life. She quickly returned with the item and drove home with her son. But then she ended up, the police became involved in this situation. When she returned to the car, he was still smiling and playing his game. But when she drove home, and now the police are charging her with contributing to the delinquency of a minor for letting her son play a video game system in the car. Now, I can remember when I was growing up, and I'd have my Game Boy. My mother would leave me in the car to play that. She'd run in somewhere, and I'd be in the car playing the game system. There was no problem. But apparently, now you get arrested for contributing to delinquency of a minor. I believe it says here it's like a maximum of a 5-year charge. It's ridiculous. According to she talked to her lawyer, she said she didn't feel like she committed the crime she was charged with. But the lawyer advised her to that the juvenile court sides heavily against parents and would likely take her children away. So she ended up copping a plea for 100 hours of community service if they wouldn't pursue her criminally. So she didn't end up going to jail over this. It says right here, not long ago, letting a child stay in the car with a parent was apparent when the parent shops was a routine occurrence for many loving parents. And it's not illegal, but they're charging her with contributing. They charge her with contributing to delinquency of a minor. Luckily, she got off only doing 100 hours of community service and ended up in jail over this. But the most concerning part about this interaction here is now, the child is traumatized. Here's some stuff that she was saying has happened since this incident. She had got out of her car one day to feed the parking meter next to the driver's side window, and her son started crying out, "Mommy, don't, the police will come." Another time, she went to let the dog into the front yard while he was watching a cartoon, and he screamed out, "Mommy, no, the police." One afternoon at a swim lesson, and he didn't come out, he was crying, "Mommy, Mommy, I thought someone was going to steal me." So now this kid's traumatized and can't enjoy a regular life. Well, at least he knows not to trust the police. So I wish I could say that was a good thing. But to be traumatized like that, to live in that much fear when you're so young is not. The kid's 4 years old living in fear. That's what the police have done to this kid. They got this kid living in fear of thinking that his mommy's going to go to jail every time she does anything, because she hadn't done anything wrong. So every time she does something that isn't even illegal, he's thinking his mom's going to go to jail now. And here's a story out of Chesterton, Indiana, where this is a result of the war on drugs. This is what the war on drugs causes here. An innocent man was arrested in an early morning raid and jailed for 10 days because he had the same first and last name as a drug suspect. Stephen M. Thompson, who was a service technician at ArcelorMittal Steel, received an early morning visit from the Porter County Drug Task Force on May 5th. He was taken from his teenage daughter in handcuffs. Mr. Thompson had done nothing wrong, and he thought that this misunderstanding could be cleared up once he was in police custody, except it didn't work out that way for him. Despite having absolutely no evidence of these drug felonies, they charged him with 2 Class B felonies for dealing pills and heroin. Each felony carries a 6 to 20-year prison sentence. They accused him of being a drug dealer, and he was locked up in Porter County Jail. He wasn't a drug dealer. He was just an innocent victim in all of this. On the 10th day of his confinement, he was finally able to prove his innocence with the help of his attorney, Bob Harper. Although Thompson's identity matched the one on the warrant down to the date of birth and middle initial, the data on the warrant had been incorrectly obtained. The intended subject was Stephen P. Thompson, who was 3 years younger and of the same race. So they go there, and Stephen M. Thompson goes ahead and gets arrested, taken off in handcuffs, and he's lucky the police didn't, try and find a reason to beat him up, So this guy, they find absolutely nothing in his house, and then they charge him with it. You know, absolutely, they find nothing, and they still charge him with these felonies. So now, as the result of this false arrest, it caused him to rack up a bunch of bills, face threats of eviction from his home, and lose his job of 6 years. Thompson is lucky because it didn't go any further, but you know, he still was fired from his job. He lost 10 days of his life. He lost his name and numerous personal inconvenience. This is just an example of the war on drugs claiming another innocent victim here. He had done absolutely nothing. Not that being a drug dealer is a crime. I want to make that very known. But for this guy he wasn't even a drug dealer, to go to jail for being a drug dealer, even though he was let go for 10 days. It just shows you the kind of bullshit that the war on drugs has brought to this country here. It's really insane here. All right, here's another story where it was, I'm not sure what state this was in, Durham, where police decided to use aggressive force against a cyclist, John Hill. He was a black man riding his bike to work, and the officer stopped him and accused him of running a traffic light. Hill denied running the traffic light, noting the officer noted that he had a camera in the car, so Hill demanded to see the recording. But instead, the officer told him to shut down or sit down. And when Hill, didn't sit down, the officer grabbed him by the arm and slammed him on the ground. Apparently, this slamming him on the ground, it broke his arm, according to his complaint here. And good thing for Mr. Hill, though, is at least all charges were dropped. The police, breaks his arm, but at least they had the, even though they originally did charge him with the running of the light, they did drop all charges against him after breaking his arm. His attorney apparently is going to be trying to get reparations for this. But here's the thing here. This so-called the video that they claim shows him running the red light apparently got lost. So the police don't have the video, and they're claiming that also police videos are not public record, apparently, so they have no reason to give you the video, but they're claiming that that particular video was lost. All right, now here's another story out of not quite sure where, but so this homeless guy, 48-year-old Robert Oliver, who had committed no crime, had harmed no one, and was just trying to sleep outside of a building, when the police officer, Ben Cromwell, approached him, yelling, "Wake up, wake up, wake up," and then jumped on top of the sleeping man and proceeded to beat him. So now the cop jumps on this guy, waking him up, and is beating this guy. According to the officer, Cromwell, the homeless man, Oliver, had grabbed one of his testicles during the struggle. But I mean, he's trying to defend himself. He's waking up. So his reasoning was this guy trying to defend himself was reason to keep beating him. So he tells his sergeant, as his sergeant walked over, "He had one a hold of my testicles, bro. So I just kept hitting him." The police chief released the video after some internet outrage had happened and question had been raised for the need of the force. I watched the video. That force was definitely not. All he was doing was sleeping there, and this guy jumped on top of him and attacked him. I'm sure if you do a YouTube search for his name, Robert Oliveira, that's Olvera, the video should pull up there so you can watch it for yourself. And thank you for watching. Again, this is Freedom Underground. My name's James Weeks II. And keep watching Voluntary Virtues Network for more great shows like this. Thank you and have a good night.